Welcome to the February 7th, 2025 meeting of the Beavercreek Rotary. First, I want to thank Stephanie Cronin and David Bradenberg for now meeting the food, for being our Greeks, Eric Marcus, ticket master, still selling tickets over there. Beth Handworker for much everything she does here. Pete Bales, Mike Morristown, and Mike Swift for the great programs, and Jim Gunn from the website. Okay, you're available, have an invitation. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Could you please join me in prayer? Let us pray silently together, each one of us according to our individual beliefs. Let us offer thanks for our food, blessings for one another, and be a source of hope for those in need, and contentment for those who are lonely. Let us give gratitude for our opportunities for Rotary, the feelings of love, kindness, well-directed, yet gentle spirit will always be reflected in our action. Thank you, Debbie. I also have to make an announcement. Another person back there at the table that's 2 weeks in a row that Stephen Brown. It must be some. I don't even know. So, the Secretary's report, Joe Jenkins.
We're at 60% right. We have several guests. Bill, do you want to introduce your guest first?
Thank you. My guest, Tom Rock.
Beth?
I have Kenzie with me. She is one of my coworkers, so she's interested in perhaps joining Rotary. So be nice to her. All right.
I will have that. This meeting.
May I have guests?
Have strong change today, and he's with the Air Force Museum Foundation.
And I have a guest, Steve Temple. He's with Federal Investments.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, we're gonna have a abbreviated Sergeant at Arms report today, because we have a really nice activity happening today, so. Chris, I think it, boy, it better to get stock up. Don't go too far.
All right. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, and hello again to our guests, Eric, Kinsey, Steve, and Tom, and of course, our long-term guest, Abby, and our incredible speaker and Rotarian speaker. Today is February 7th, the meeting of the Rotary Club of Beavercreek, and happy National Working Naked Day, which, for the record, this is not what HR means by being fully transparent. We do have a couple birthdays and anniversaries coming up. Jim Rudd will be doing double duty, celebrating his birthday on the 13th. And then he will be celebrating his anniversary with us on the 11th. 11th will mark a quarter of a century with us. And then wedding anniversaries, Jim Gundel and Sharon will be celebrating 25 years of marriage.
No.
No?
No, thank you.
Hey, Eric. Update that TV. All right, so to Don's little announcement, we did get some breaking news this morning, so I don't know if it will cause a standing ovation or some protests, but President Trump just signed an executive order that reads, and I quote, "By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered as follows. Whereas the Sergeant at Arms report has been cited short, and whereas a full and complete audit of said report is now deemed necessary to ensure the integrity of Rotary meetings, therefore, by executive authority, I do hereby and forthwith order an immediate freeze on the Sergeant at Arms report, pending further review and verification, finding omissions, and dollar generating opportunities. Henceforth, all individuals currently present for the Rotary Club of Beavercreek's meeting today shall be assessed a $1 fine as a compliance measure to uphold the spirit of Rotary's fiscal responsibility This order shall remain in fact, or remain in effect until such a time that I determine the audit is complete or I get distracted by something funnier. So Dan, we should have, or Don, we should have tons of happy books coming up now.
Thank you, sir. Any happy bucks out there? Somebody over here, there.
Talking about, playing cards today. My lovely wife did a playing card run to the golf club for me so that we can now do the draw.
That's good.
Yeah, I'd like to give a happy buck for our member, but seldom present, Paul. Adrian, it's great to see you. Thanks.
It's Joe.
Saturday, Eric, myself, Dave Brandenburg, and Don, we all went down to, Rotary Hamilton for their bourbon and chocolate, and it was absolutely fantastic, and I'm hopeful that, hopefully this year that we can do something similar, because it was fantastic, great turnout, great for the community. Hopefully we bring that Beavercreek.
And they raised $30,000 that night.
Yeah,
So we will definitely be looking at that in the future. Anyone else?
Just want to throw it out there. Ryla season is upon us. We'll be doing Ryla on the weekend of March the 21st to the 23rd. If anyone in this room knows anyone who is a high school sophomore or junior, let me know, because we would like to make sure that they get out to Ryla. If not, we'll fill those slots. So I got a really easy form I can send over to them. They can fill out it online and we'll take care of paying for them to go. So
What's those dates? Do you know offhand?
it is the 21st to the 23rd. So, yeah, no problem.
And hopefully this year we'll have some warm weather. Danny.
It's that time of year for the four-way speed contest, so we will be judging the participants this coming Thursday, June 13th at 4:00.
Very good. Okay, let's see on the hand back. David.
Yeah, I sort of put in 5 for the happy bucks. I made it through my heart procedure Tuesday, no problem, no issues.
Anyone else? Happy bucks.
I could just,
Yes, we have one more here.
Thanks for the reminder last week. Katie had a good birthday and for one night only, we were young again. Wednesday was rough.
Right, chicken drawing. Probably not a lot in the pot this week, because it's Muzak won it all last week. But half the proceeds of this go to our Christmas basket, program, and, what are we looking for this time?
10 clubs.
10 clubs, what we're looking for. All right, number 653-439.
Oh, my.
Oh. JD.
How many clubs?
I'll get the joking, it's too early. Still not as growing. Very good. All right, I'm gonna ask Brian Lampton to come forward. And our speakers, our great speakers, will just have to wait just a minute, because this is a really important thing as far as I'm concerned in this club. I know.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to induct our latest new Rotary couple into our Rotary Club. So we are always delighted to add new members. So at this time, Tanvi Banerjee, will you please stand and be recognized? So ladies first. Tanvi is an associate professor at Wright State University, teaching computer science and AI. Born and raised in Pune, India, where she graduated from high school. And while in high school, she was a vocalist. She sang in choirs, solo, and she sang Indian classical music. She earned her degree in Pune in electrical engineering. And then here in the States, she earned a master's in electrical and computer engineering at the University of Missouri. But of course, she didn't stop there. She earned her PhD in electrical and computer engineering at the University of Missouri. So I'll pause and say our club IQ has gone up and will continue to go up, double when we introduce Will. She is a member of the IEEE, the oldest engineering organization. So we'll make the connection now. She met her husband while at the University of Missouri. And that's how I always like to ask, how in the world did you end up here? Right? Especially when you started in India. So that's how she ended up here at University of Missouri and met Will, and now they're here. And you'll find out why he's here in a moment. She enjoys reading, singing, and yoga. In fact, she teaches yoga here in Beavercreek. She's married to Will, and they have 2 children. Tanvi's Rotary sponsor is Don Adams. So, Tanvi, you may be seated. And now, Professor William Romine, will you please stand to be recognized? So, Will and his wife are once again, I said, elevating our Rotary IQ. Now, Will has 2 gigs, maybe 3. He owns a company, R&B Analytics, doing research for, is it Kairos? Is that how you say it? Kairos? A research company working on human and machine cognition. So that's AI. He's a professor and researcher at the Wright State University, teaching classes in ethics and analytics. He was born in Macon, Missouri, attended high school in Jefferson City, where he was involved in cross country. He earned his bachelor's of physics at Truman State University, and then a master's of education and geology, and then a PhD in curriculum and instruction at the University of Missouri. So now you get the connection. They were both there. So again, I ask, how in the world did you get up here into warm and cheerful Beavercreek, Ohio? And it was, he applied to, what was it, 50 different places, and Wright State made him the best offer. So that's how we got here. Now he has a couple of unique hobbies. He is a 2nd degree black belt, okay, and a certified instructor for Taekwondo. He's been training in judo for the last 5 years. So again, they are married. They have 2 children. Their son, Arjun, age 6, and daughter, Uma, who just turned 3, I found out. And of course, he is also sponsored by Mayor Adams. So Will, you may be seated. These words today are directed primarily at our new inductees, but hopefully it'll be a reminder for all of us. What are the objectives of Rotary? Rotary is to encourage and foster the ideal of service as a basis for worthy enterprise, and in particular, fellowship, work ethics, practicing your beliefs. So that's the application of the ideal service every Rotarian will use in their personal and business and community life. We also promote the global dimension. That's the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a world fellowship of business and professional people, again, united by the ideal of service. We notice a word that keeps continuing over and over. That word is service. While we enjoy the fellowship of our weekly meetings, we must never forget that Rotary is first and foremost a service club. And we're here to make our community and our world a better place. So what do we expect of our members? We expect your attendance at our Friday noon meetings. However, if you can't make it, there are other clubs that meet. Xenia Tuesday at noon, Fairborn Wednesday at noon, and there's many others around here that you can just drop in and say, I'm a visiting Rotarian, and they'll be glad to take your money for lunch. If you like breakfast, I think the Oakwood Club still has early morning 7 a.m. breakfast. I don't know where they meet. We do expect you to promptly reply to your quarterly invoice, or Eric will yell at you. We We ask that you participate in all of our endeavors, or as many as you can, including service on our board. There are tons of choices, so we just expect you to do something, okay? Please remember and learn the four-way test. It is a guiding principle of Rotary. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build a goodwill and better friendships? And number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? These four criteria should always influence your personal and business decisions. So take advantage of the various opportunities open to you. Remember the motto of Rotary, service above self. Make these words come alive by practicing service in your own life. In the days ahead, this club will give you many opportunities to put that motto to work, and we are sure you will respond to the best of your ability. So at this time, Tammy, Will, Don, will you please come forward and receive your Rotary pins?
Stand for the Rotary banner, done.
Go ahead, Don.
This way, not so fast.
Okay.
Next victim, banging.
Sorry.
Maybe we can work magnetic one second. Sharp. You finish. Over here, let's get a nice group photo. Beavercreek Rotarians, I'm pleased to introduce our newest Rotary couple, Tammy Banerjee and Will Romine.
Thank you, welcome. And just so everybody knows, I got another application from Mr. Temple over here, so we have another joining us soon. All right, now it's time for our wonderful speakers. I think they really don't need any introduction. I'm here every year. Both members of our club, and I'm really looking forward to what they have to say, because I have no idea what's going to be happening in the next year financially. And I'm just really hoping they give me some insight. So at this time, Dr. Paulinina and Beth Handwerker from James Investment.
Just make it click. We always have trouble with it. Okay, it's working. You saw it, it worked, all right?
Okay, what do we do? She always tell me what to do on that.
Down means advance. And that means go backwards.
I can handle it.
Yes, you can.
Well, thank you very much for having us again. And every year we do this. We hope that the advice we gave you in the past helped. And welcome to Will and Tavi. 40 years ago, people asked me the same question. How in the hell did you get to from the West Coast at the time? And this is a wonderful place. That's really a good decision I made. I had few jobs to that, and I always come back to this place. This is a really important place to raise kids, and also it's a wonderful place for people like the people you see here today. Today I'm going to talk about something I don't know anything about. If you have any question, you can ask us. Or Mackenzie. Mackenzie is one of our new employees. She went to Wright State. with the smartest people you probably ever met, and you all know how smart that is. Today I'm going to talk about theory, and that's going to talk about practical things that you can use, taxes, etc. If you look at what's happened last year, the stock market has a remarkable run. Throughout 2024, recorded many highs, and it's a 2-year bull market basically was extraordinary. And most of that was due to the AI, artificial intelligence stocks, the Magnificent Seven, like Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla. These companies averaged last year 67%, while the other 493 companies of the S&P 500 averaged 17%. It was a really big year of AI. The market demonstrated resilience given what's happened last year. The Middle East conflict, you had Ukraine war, you had the Chinese economic problems. The election also played a big role in that big numbers, because after Trump election, the risk was on. You can see this is the Magnificent Seven compared to the S&P 500. And the market also brought in a lot of money, around 1 trillion. A lot of money that was sitting around. People were waiting for interest rate to go down, and most money was parked in money market fund. And most of that went in the stock market. Growth dominated the value. Growth company, especially in the artificial intelligence area. The financial sector did very well because of the election of Trump, deregulation, and the new environment that will let cryptocurrency and let company merge, especially small banks, and also the stress test will probably be gone soon. Then you can see the Federal Reserve also began an easing cycle. September, they lowered the interest rates. And then you also have Bitcoin and gold. Gold last year did better than the S&P 500. Gold now is around 2,800. A lot of people think it's going to go to 3,000. That's it. This is small cap versus large cap. The green one is the S&P 500. The other one is a lot of volatility in the small cap, but because the large cap had a big run, the small cap also went by the end of the year because of regulation. Also, they went up. Again, the arrival of Trump and the White House with the Republican Congress had a profound impact on the stock market across all sectors, especially in the financial and cryptocurrencies. The economy have done really well last year. We're all, the growth rate was around 3%. On average, the last 10 to 15 years, the average around 2%. The market, the GDP expanded by exactly close to 3%. And most of that also came in the fourth quarter. The labor market also was very strong. Unemployment rate at 4.1%, positive wage growth, and also they received some indication that the job market is slowing in some areas. The housing market, strong demand and low supply. The mortgage rate dropped the end of the year by 6.8. Today, the mortgage rate is around 6.9, so it went up. And the reason is in the marketplace, a lot of people think inflation is going to go up. Even though the Federal Reserve is lowering interest rate, but out there, the bond market, and most people think that with all the changes that are happening with tariff, etc., they think that the interest rate is going to rise. You can see the Fed has paused their cutting rates in the last meeting they had. All the number in housing are good. The housing affordability index 105 at the end of the year, it's now to 100. That's basically then the median income family pay for a median home using conventional borrowing. That's basically what, when that number is 100, that's mean the medium income family can buy a medium house if they are using conventional mortgage. Now that's still struggling there, but you can see construction spending is up, building permits are declining. That's an indicator usually of what's going to happen in the future. In the future, next few quarters, when the building permits are declining, the housing market going to consumer. That's really the big positive thing, that consumers are still spending money. That's 70% of the GDP is basically consumption. And clearly here, the consumer is doing very well. The sentiment is high, service growth is very high, and in the last number in the GDP, the consumer was the biggest part of the increase in the GDP market. Good growth is up, sales are up, and also the personal saving rate is a lot of optimism is out there. People are spending money. The big issue is what's going to happen with the change in policies. And a lot of people today talk about tariffs and what's happened in tariff. And maybe we should spend a little time talking about what are tariffs and what's the economic impact of all this. Tariffs really are done to remedy unfair trade practice. Some countries subsidize their goods, services, and that's number one. A lot of places also use to protect someone's, make sure that the competition is not there, especially if you have the nascent industry, something that's new that you want to protect, that's usually done. People use it to gain negotiation leverage. Sometimes they're going to put you if you don't do this or do that. That's what you probably see. Addressing some threats sometime, for example, what Trump is doing with the border. That's another. And also raising federal money, because these are levies that people have to pay when they bring goods and services here. But these tariffs have implications. First of all, increase in consumer prices in general, because if you put a tariff of 10% on a product that doesn't have a substitute here, you should expect the price to go up. Now, sometimes company will absorb some of that cost. In economics, that's called a degree of pass-through, how much they are passing to you and how much they're absorbing themselves. But the cost has to go up. That's also have an implication. When consumer price go up, what do you think the Fed will do?
Raise rates.
Raise interest rates, or not lower interest rates. That's the impact of that. It has higher long-term inflation expectation. That's very important. Expectation that inflation is going to go up and rise usually the bond market. And now, for the last few months, the expectation, the break-even rate for long-term inflation has been going up. Sometimes also companies use the tariff as an excuse to increase prices. That's called inflation. That's called the excuse inflation. I'm going to give you an example of that. In 2018, the American appliance company in the US asked Trump to put a tariff on washer companies, on appliances. And he put a tariff of 20% on washing machines. That tariff was from 2018 and expired 2023. What's happened? The price of the washers went up by 9% higher than the inflation rate in that period. But the dryer that did not have any tax on it, went up by 19%. Even though it has nothing to do with, they did not have a levy on the dryer. Well, then what else happened? Samsung and LG built some plant in the US, which is a positive thing because it's increased labor. But economists have calculated that the cost of those individual that got that job cost the consumer $822,000 per job, which means if you take all the money, extra money that consumer in the US have paid extra, and divide that by the number of workers that will be created by the new plant, each worker costs $820,000. That should give you an idea. There's a cost to this type of the tariff also may cause some job loss in different areas in the economy. For example, if the Canadian puts the tax on liquor or orange juice, will have an impact on some area of the country, not the whole thing. And most of the tariffs are usually targeted, but the tariffs that we see now are blanket. Everybody has to pay these targets. Now, there is also something called the minimus rules, which means that you can bring anything that is worth less than $800 to the country without paying taxes. Now, the new tariff, 10% on China, applied to these packets. There are around 1 billion packets came last year. And you those are Temu and Shein, Amazon, and all these people. That's huge. So all these people are not paying any customs. Now, if you put that on all these tariffs, that's going to slow down that business because now the customer has to look at every packet. And there's not that many people there to do it. And the other aspect that we didn't talk about is going to create a lot of revenue. Somehow you're going to put taxes on, put duty on all these elements. That's going to bring a lot of money. And people think that's money going to help reduce the tax local for the American taxpayer. See. Now, the other thing we talked about, this 20% broadly, that was what's at the end of the year. You all know now that it's 10% on China already, and there is a 1 month reprieve for Mexico and Canada. That's going to go in apparently in Europe when it comes next. Question, will Europe as a group always be targeted to some country? Because in Europe, there are countries that have a deficit with us. That means they send us more than we send them. And there are countries, are they going to negotiate as a group, or are they going to be doing it as country by country? The tax cuts extension, remember that when Trump came, the tax went down, and now is the time for them to negotiate those, and that also will have an impact. And Beth will tell you more about that. People talk about immigration restriction that may have an impact on the labor market. It is also not clear how many people are going to be shipped back, what's the impact of that on the labor market. And there are the spending reduction. You probably have heard that Elon Musk is working hard to see that they can lower those costs by getting AID, USAID, and stuff like that. Again, this is a very important part of what's going to happen in the next few months. That's what you see the volatility, because it's not clear yet which one of these tariffs are going to be, which country, what is the impact of all this. That's the volatility that you see in the marketplace. You can see in January, the market went up and down, went up and down. Part of that also is DeepSeek, which is the AI, the Chinese AI, that's really came out but that's an important. But the other part is, what will the Fed do? The Federal Reserve do? If the tariffs start going up and inflation go up, what the Federal Reserve do? Powell has 1 more year as the chair, and the Trump Trump cannot take him out before that one year. That's another issue that the market have to deal with, basically, because the Fed is an independent institution, and usually post-president, when they come, they try to tell the Fed lower interest rates because they want the job market. Democrat, Republican, all the sides all come in and say, hey, okay, I want you to lower interest rates because that's gonna improve the job market. That's why I can get elected next time. Again, strong risk on response. That means when Trump was elected, the market really took that as a positive because of the regulation, because the optimism went way up, especially in small business. And in most sector of the economy, people thought that was positive. I think there may be some supply chain disruption risk. 5 years ago, the biggest exporter to the US was China. Today is Mexico. When you look at what's happened in the 5 years, a lot of Chinese company went to Mexico. I looked at the import-export between China and Mexico, and it went way up over the last 5 years. While China coming here, product coming here went down by 20%. Now Mexico is the biggest trade part-time exporter to the US. And that's a supply chain disruption going to happen if you have those type of potential inflation of Russia. We talked about that. Labor market tightening. We don't know. That's really not. We don't know how many people are going to leave and what type of skill they have and which part of the economy is going to be affected. It mostly in hotels, in farming community and stuff like that, where you're going to see the impact of the labor market tightening because of immigration. Again, the Fed is on pause now. We don't know if they're going to lower interest rates. It all depends. They said they are data dependent. It all depends if the inflation is going to go up or not. And so far it is not going up. But they are wait and see. The current rate is around 4.75. And basically now they are focusing on inflation. The mandate of the Fed, dual mandate is what? Lower inflation, high employment. That's basically the thing they deal with. Now they are happy with where the labor market is, because we have 4.1% in employment rate, but they are worried about the inflation all the way to 9%. Now it's 2.56%. The target rate is 2%. Okay, but a lot of people think the target rate should be raised because that has been raised for many years. Again, watch for the potential conflict with the administration, especially what's going to happen between the Fed and the government. That's probably going to be an issue of volatility. The market probably doesn't view well if the government decided to take out Powell or some of the people that's less independent, but we will see. Don't think so far. Vincent, who is now the Secretary of Treasury, said they really want to keep the Fed independent. They don't want to interfere in their business, which is the market is looking at that and being positive. But well, there are a lot of opportunity today in the marketplace, especially in financial. I've heard that the stress test that these banks do every year, they don't have to do them anymore. And that's going to help the bank also if they want to merge. There are thousands and thousands of small banks out there. This will probably help them. Energy will be a domestic focus on production. And that's the price of oil and it fluctuates a lot because also it depends on the Chinese demand. Economy in China doesn't do well, then you should expect the price of oil to, you should not expect the price of oil to go up. And their economy is not doing well. They have the housing crisis, financing, and also they have the tariff now to deal. their economy is basically driven by export. And most of that come here. There is a tax that's gonna probably slow their economy. Industrial, there are a lot of shoring means bringing business here to the US. And that's also, and that's gonna help in technology, automation solution, that type of. The challenge, import dependent retailers are gonna have a problem because they are importing a lot of this stuff here. Labor intensive industry, rate sensitive sector, means if the interest rate doesn't go down, those companies and the small cap in general also are gonna be not doing well in that. And then highly leveraged small cap. A lot of small cap companies, small capital companies, borrow money, borrow a lot of money, have a lot of leverage. And around 40% of small cap have negative profit. They're not making money. And since they are borrowing money at higher interest rate, they are not really doing well, their margin is going to be squeezed for them. And also the market, high market valuation. If you look at the PE, which is the measure price earning ratio, is very high. People are paying too much today for stocks. On average, the PE of 5 years 19, now it's 22. A lot of money pouring in the stock market. The valuation is very high, and usually it's a poor timing market for a short run, but over a period of time, it's not good to have that euphoria where people are bidding the price of these stocks. That's more than they were. But some sectors, if you look at technology sector, historically have a high rate, 29.2, and you can see the energy sector was 14. Again, a strong earning growth expected, and that's where the problem will start also. If these companies, their tariff come in, their margin going to go down if they don't pass the cost to. And a lot of these AI companies, when they have their earnings, if they miss by a small amount, the price go way down. And that's because the valuation already very high. You can see it today of Amazon the other day, who small miss in any of the metrics, like sales or earnings or whatever it is, have a big impact on. The risk policy implementation timing. These tariffs, these deregulation, what's the timing of that? Is that going to be a gradual thing? That's going to be something that's going to be upfront? See, and keep in mind, there is a deregulation, but also there's a tax aspect. Which one going to go first? Are they going to go at the same time? Okay, that's Fed White House relation. That's an important part there. The inflation pressure, global trade tension. You've seen that with Canada and Mexico, and you see it with Europe coming soon. And also the tariff impact on treasury sales. The government borrowed a lot of money, but guess who is the biggest buyer? China. The biggest buyer of treasury is China. Then you can see what's going to, the implication of all this is they are the buyer. There are a lot of also people from overseas that buy the treasury, biggest buyer. What's going to happen if we have this trade friction? Well, these countries keep buying the treasuries. That's another issue. Again, geopolitical conflict. So far, I think Trump has done a good job in slowing down the Middle East and probably going to slow down what's happening in Ukraine, which is a very positive thing for the market. Labor market, again, labor market deterioration will depend on how many people are going to leave and what kind of job they have, what kind of impact they have. And corporate margin sustainability. Stock go up and down because basically how much profit this company making. And how can they keep this margin of PDF, for example, if you have a margin of 60 or 70%, can they keep that? Or when other people start coming in and say, well, you're making 60%, I'm going to start a business like yours. And that's usually what's happening. Okay. And that's really something that's going to be important besides the politics is the corporate margin. How much profit this company? Every time the earnings go up by a small amount, you get a big jump in stock price. But that jump is a lot smaller than when they miss. When they miss, they got hit a lot harder. Okay? And that's very important to watch for how much profit these companies are are making on my investment application. It basically means to focus on company-specific analysis, be aware of the risk available out there, look at the monitor the Fed policy, that's interest rates, price of money is probably today the number one thing to look, the market is looking at in terms of pricing. A lot of these securities I consider sector rotation strategy. Some of you may have made a lot of money in technology. Maybe it's time to take it into the profit. In some of those, and consider putting some others, maintain quality focus and also valuation. These companies are very expensive. We are paying too much for dollars and earnings. That's basically what that PE we're talking about. Fixed income, a lot of you own bonds, stuff, and now you can get 4.5%, 5% for 30 years. Maybe just a bad idea to park some money there, because if the interest rate start going down, we are not going to see that for a long time. And that's important to keep that. Selective credit exposure, probably not a good idea to be junk bond now because of all this volatility that is going on. And focus on high quality. Municipal bond offer a lot of opportunity. It's a cheap segment of the market today. And the Fed can lower interest rate, but also they have something called quantitative easing. Okay, or tightening in this case. Basically, they bought a lot of security from the government in the last 3 or 5 years, especially during the COVID period. Now they start selling them. Okay, and that's basically that's another way for them to lower interest rate or increase interest rate. Watch for geopolitical risk. It's an important part today. What's going to happen? What is going to be when they start retaliating? What's going to happen when you put the tariff on somebody and that somebody put the tariff on you, and that's it. It is not a zero-sum game. It's called a negative sum game, where negative sum game means that we're both going to lose, but you're going to lose more than I lost. And that's not good. Rather have it zero-sum game than negative sum game. Gain some gain, yeah, we're going to lose more than, but we're both going to lose in that process. Now, for the practical aspect of the whole thing, yes, it's telling you about what to do next. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Thank you. He is really a brilliant man. So thank you. So another big thing that's happening in 2025 is we're seeing the end of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that Trump put into place. So this is the last year for that. If Congress does nothing, we're going to roll back to the old rates and things. So I wanted to talk about this is the last year, right, that we're going to have these low rates. What are some of the things that we can be doing this year in preparation for perhaps it not renewing and Congress does nothing, right? What'll happen? So some of the big changes that I'm going to kind of walk through, and I got just a few minutes here, but the tax rates, that's the biggest things, are going to be changing higher. The standard deduction is going to go way back down, okay, from where it is today. The SALT, the state and local income tax, right now there's a cap on how much you can deduct on that with your itemized deductions. That is going to be removed if nothing happens. Mortgage interest rates are going to change, or the deduction of mortgage interest rates will change. And there's going to be the return of the personal exemption, the personal exemption. Child tax credits are going to be changing. The estate and gift tax, this is a big deal, perhaps cut in half. And then some business changes. So let's kind of take a look at these. I'm a super nerd, by the way, and so I really love taxes. Okay, so, well, I hate taxes, but I love learning about them and the impacts of them and how can we manipulate to get around them, right? This is something that gets my juices flowing, so just bear with me. Speaking of, on your table, there's a summary. Let's get this. This one has all the summary tables of everything I'm going to be talking about, if you want to have all that handy. And then Paul and Kenzie wrote this brilliant analysis of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And so I thought you guys would be interested in that as well. And then our economic outlook is there. If somebody doesn't get one, let me know. We can get them to you. But back to nerddom, okay? Tax rates. So I love this chart because it shows back before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was enacted, what were the tax rates? So we can kind of see here, big picture, the top tax rate was almost 40%. And it was a huge part, right? The 35% bracket was much, much smaller. So we enter here into the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the 35% has grown significantly, and the top bracket, the percentage has gone down. And more importantly, for the average Joe, these are the married filing jointly tax incomes here, right? For the average Joe, right, 10% stayed, but 15 went down to 12, 25 went down to 22, 28 went down to 24. And again, the 24 increased, the width of the tax bracket increased significantly. And so we're kind of marching along here, and this is our last year. So perhaps we could see next year, if you're here, you could go from 24% to 33%. Okay, from 24 to 28, from 22 to 25, from 12 to 15. Okay, so this is a big deal. Okay, these tax cuts and the expiration of them. This is just a comparison of, I was showing married filing jointly. Well, here's the addition of single, and then the estates and trust tax brackets as well. So anything you see with this pretty green is current. Anything with the gray is going to be what it'll go back to. Okay, so just some really interesting things. So the standard deduction jumped significantly, right? This year for married filing jointly is $30,000. Pre-Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it was $15,000. So before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, 30% of people itemized, right? You double the standard deduction. Well, now only 11 people itemize, which is kind of interesting, right? So if this all goes away, right, we're going to see more people filing standard deductions again. And we're also getting those personal exemptions back, okay, that we aren't getting or haven't gotten since the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So here's that state and local taxes. This makes people really angry, right? Right now, it's capped at $10,000. There's a lot of you whose probably property taxes are more than $10,000 a year, right? And so if you can't deduct the full amount of your property taxes and your income taxes, right, all that stuff, that really hunks people off. And we live in Ohio, right? Like our property taxes aren't crazy, or our property valuations aren't crazy in comparison to California or on the East Coast, right? So anyway, this honks people off. This is set to expire if nothing happens. They now, if you have a mortgage of higher than $750,000, you can't deduct that mortgage interest. There's probably none of us here who have a mortgage that high, I hope. But pre-Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the first $1 million of mortgage interest you can deduct. So that's gonna perhaps go back. Charitable deductions, they did increase. Now you can do 60% of your adjusted gross income as a charitable deduction. Pre-Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it was 50. My clients would be really excited about that if we could, under the old system, they can deduct the fees they pay me. So that would be really exciting when I came back. The fees limitation, if you made too much money, you couldn't get the full itemized deduction. So perhaps those will come back as well. So kind of a mixed bag there. Child tax credits. So right now, you get $2,000 child tax, and this is a credit, right? Not a deduction. Under the old system, you get $1,000. Most people look at this and they're like, it's more, but, right, remember, we lost those personal exemptions under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So this is, I think, kind of a wash. I'd rather get the personal exemption. Anyway, so things there. And then once they get too old, you can only get $500 for them and not the $2,000. So this is a big deal. So right now, if you pass away, you can have an estate of almost $14 million, okay, and not pay any estate tax or gift tax. If nothing happens, this is the inflated number. We're estimating, right, that it'll go down to about $7 million. Okay. And I've got a really cool chart here that will talk about like the impact, like, does this matter? Very few people have estates over 14 million. If they do, they've done planning hopefully to deal with that. So for our business owners in here, under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, there's a 20% QBI deduction. And so for certain qualified expenses, you get a deduction of 20% of those. So that is going to expire if the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act goes away. They did make the corporate tax reduction permanent. So that will not change if this is phased out. And then this bonus depreciation, and this has helped a lot of businesses too. If you buy something, you can have this bonus depreciation. You can depreciate it much faster than you would otherwise. That'll be phased out next year. We can still do 20%, but it'll be phased out in 2027. So what can we do in 2025 to do these things, to take advantage of where things are now? Well, we can move some of our income to 2025. Roth conversions, that's a big thing we've been talking to people about over the last really 5 years. Taking advantage of that. If we know income, our income's gonna jump from 24 to 33. Should we do some Roth conversions now and pay the tax now? Invoice clients earlier, right? Pre-bill people, perhaps they get paid this year instead of in 2026. Should we be taking some of those capital gains? Paul was talking about taking gains from perhaps particular sectors of your stock holdings. Make some big gifts in 2025. I heard the Beavercreek Rotary Foundation will take your money. So this bunching of charitable deductions, that's where you can take 2 years worth of deductions. You say, okay, hey, I normally give $10,000 a year to charity. What if I did 20,000 in 2025 instead of doing 10,000 in 2025 and 10,000 in 2026? Right, so just some things to think about. And this QBI, right, again, accelerate any business income if you can into 2025 to take advantage of that QBI deduction. And so this is a delay, if you can do this, delay your state tax payments to 2026. So why am I saying that? If the SALT deduction or the SALT cap goes away, right, the state income from 10,000 to unlimited, then it could make sense to pay your state taxes in 2026 in a time where there's not going to be that cap on what you've done. So I'm not advocating you pay your property taxes late, okay, but that's something to think about. All right, so the wild card, what is Congress going to do? Are they going to extend these tax cuts? So President Trump, these are his tax cuts to begin with, so he's obviously in favor of extending them. And the Treasury Secretary is also in favor of extending them. But the Republicans are in control, but they still need bipartisan support to make this extension happen. And this is a trick, let's say, if they can use extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act through reconciliation legislation. And so that's an easier way to get a bill passed. It can't be filibustered and things like that. But that's an easier way to get something through Congress, but they have to look in a 10-year budget window of how that's going to impact the deficit. So speaking of that, I think that a good question to ask is, can we afford to extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, right? What does that do to our deficit? So it increases the deficit if they stretch it out another 10 years. It increases it by $4.6 trillion. Okay, where does most of that cost come from? It's from those individual income tax provisions, right? We saw again, those tax brackets came way down. So the lion's share of the cost of this Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is inside of our individual income tax. The estate and gift tax, very little impact compared to, I mean, it's only 167 billion, right? It's not a big deal. But in comparison, and then the business tax provisions I was talking about, right? That's another, but again, the largest is this individual income tax. So how could we pay for that $4.6 trillion? Well, tariffs, as Paul talked about, that's one option. By the way, none of these are political comments, just for the record. Like, This is what could happen, right? This is how they could. What actually is going to happen? Hard to know, okay, but tariffs, they could increase the corporate tax rates again. So again, they were 20, they're capped at 21. Could those go back up? Could they raise capital gains tax rates? Right now, most people pay 15% tax on capital gains. So could that number go up? Should they keep the SALT deduction, that state and local income taxes capped at 10,000? Could they cap the itemized deductions for high income earners, maintain the lower mortgage interest amount? This is the big thing. And Paul talked about this, reforming entitlement spending, reforming how Social Security and Medicare, those programs and how they work. It could see a huge impact on the bottom line of the government. And of course, discretionary spending as well, right? Those are things they could look at reducing to help fund these tax cuts. All right. I think I hit it right on the nose there. Paul and I will be here if you have questions. I know we're right at 1 o'clock. Yeah. Okay.
I'm really glad that there are people smart enough to figure this stuff out, because I'm not one. So, as always, we do a book dedication, and they both signed this as the President's Decoded. So, a guide to leaders who shaped our nation. So, put that in our library. Next week's speaker is James Turpinning. He's the guy that had his house redone a few years ago with the Extreme Home Makeover. And he's got an amazing story. So I look forward to seeing that. Our trainers next week will be David and Beth Kuzak, regardless of what the screen said. Not updated. Then we'll be a board meeting, to follow next week's meeting. And if there's anything else for the good of the you know, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic stands one nation, but its soul, liberty, and justice for all. Everybody have a great weekend. Everybody have a great weekend. We are in a spot. Thank you. So, I'm looking at you, don't worry about it. I know it's in what quality trying to like or we're here to inquire to time. So I picked all the requirements you want to open it. I get the one. Okay. Like Congress, those talk for people. Oh, really? Turn around. It's the trouble, though. Yeah, well. I think of such a big time. If we're not, look at the that's the guy, right? Yeah, go sure. Don't bring them to some of stop it. It's with the reality calls. Still that. They have loud. And check the server later. We can pull on the. That's the call. Well done. Sorry.